All right, I'm gonna start now. Hello everyone, my name is Sarah and I'm the Urban Garden Assistant with the IPY Office of Sustainability, and I'll be presenting on food insecurity as well as demonstrating how to grow plants from food scraps. So here's the agenda for today's webinar. I'll be talking about what food insecurity is and how it occurs and why it's considered a problem. I'll also be discussing how Indiana measures up across the country, and I'll be providing resources to help in the greater Indianapolis area as well as on the IUPUI campus. During the section on IUPUI, Dylan, who is one of the co-directors for Campus Kitchens, will give a small presentation on what his student organization does to help prevent food insecurity. I will then move on to the plant regrowth presentation and demonstration, and questions and discussions will take place. So what is food insecurity? According to the World Food Summit, food security exists when all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food for a healthy and active life. Hunger is often used interchangeably with food insecurity, but they're not the same thing. Hunger is discomfort, illness, weakness, or pain that is caused by prolonged involuntary lack of food, and hunger is often a result of food insecurity that has taken place over a long time. This is how the United States Department of Agriculture measures the ranges of food security. High food security, which is seen at the top, is when there is no stress or problems when it comes to accessing adequate food at a consistent rate. Marginal food security is when there have been only a few times where there was stress about being able to access adequate food, but over time things were not disrupted massively. Low food security is when there is a limited selection of food available, however the quantity of the food being consumed has stayed the same. And lastly, very low food security is when throughout the years, at times, the eating patterns were disrupted due to not having enough money or resources to be able to spend on food. There are a wide variety of factors that can cause food insecurity to occur. Some of these include, but are not limited to, income, employment, race and ethnicity, disability, and transportation. For people who are living in neighborhoods where transportation options are limited, the travel distance to stores becomes much longer, and it greatly limits access to supermarkets and the availability of adequate food sources. So why is this considered a problem? Food is a basic human need, and in food insecure households, the need for food competes with the need for other basic human necessities. For people who are experiencing food insecurity, they often consume a diet that is nutrient poor, which may contribute to the development of obesity, heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, as well as other chronic conditions. Food insecurity in households with children is especially concerning because children in food insecure households usually happen to have diminished physical and mental health, longer recoveries, higher hospitalization rates, a greater incidence of developmental and educational delays compared to their peers in food secure households. Here are some statistics regarding food insecurity in Indiana. 1 in 8 people struggles with hunger. People who are facing hunger are estimated to report needing $396,443,000 more dollars per year in order to meet their food needs, and 1 in 6 children struggles with hunger. Here's some more statistics on how food insecurity relates in the scope of IUPUI. 43% of IUPUI students faces food insecurity. Racial and ethnic minority students experience greater levels of food insecurity, and they're less likely to be highly food secure. And roughly 1 in 5 students faces very low food security. This is how Indiana compares to the rest of the United States of America. In Indiana, a total of 14.8% of households were food insecure in the year 2015. 15.3% of the population and 21.2% of children in Indiana were food insecure in the year 2014, and 21% of Marion County residents use some sort of food assistance, whether that be SNAP, WIC, food pantries, congregate meals, etc. In the United States, there are 14.3 million households that are suffering from food insecurity. More than 37 million people are struggling with hunger, of that, which includes 11 million children, and 40.4 million Americans rely on SNAP each month to meet their food needs. An additional 6.9 million women and children are assisted by WIC. Now moving on to resources that will help in the greater Indianapolis area, as well as on the IUPUI campus. Second Helpings is an organization that has a three-part approach to addressing hunger and poverty in central Indiana. Volunteers and staff rescue the prepared and perishable food from wholesalers, retailers, and restaurants. The rescued food is then used to create more than 4,000 hot meals every day that are then distributed to more than 90 social service agencies that feed Hoosiers in need. By using that same rescued food, the culinary job training program that Second Helpings provides helps prepare adults with barriers to employment for careers in the food service industry. The Indy Hunger Network is a coalition of anti-hunger organizations in Indianapolis. The organization works to foster collaboration and builds on the strength of pre-existing food-providing community organizations and helps identify opportunities where they can make the food system work better. They also establish improvement projects and they create an awareness for hunger assistance. They also created the Community Compass Map, which I will go into with more detail in the next slide. The Community Compass app is a multi-platform tool that helps connect Indy residents with food resources and nutrition assistance. This app helps users find food pantries, farmers markets, and hot meal sites. The technology also helps residents navigate a variety of nutrition assistance programs such as SNAP and WIC. Gleaners Food Bank is an organization that has collaborated with more than 550 pantries, kitchens, schools, and community partners in the 21 county service area. They provide aid to some of the most vulnerable populations through specialty programs such as Backsacks Weekend Food for Kids, school-based pantries, mobile pantries, summer meals for kids, Produce Hope, and Senior Hunger Initiative programs. Feeding Indiana's Hungry is the state association of food banks that are affiliated with Feeding America, which is the nation's largest food bank network. Since the year 2005, Feeding Indiana's Hungry has grown to 11 member food banks. All the food banks are affiliated with Feeding America, and they help in serving all 92 counties in Indiana. There are a few on-campus resources, such as Pause Pantry, which is a student-run food pantry on campus that serves students, staff, and faculty. In order to participate in this, all you need is your Crimson card, and the services are provided for you at no cost. Another organization is Campus Kitchens, which is a student-powered food rescue and hunger relief initiative, and I will give the floor to Dylan to talk more about that.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
So the Campus Kitchen, like Sarah said, is a student-ran food recovery group. It was started in 2014, and it's run through the Sustainability Office at IUPUI. We partner mainly with Chartwell's, our on-campus food provider, and then Second Helpings, which Sarah had already explained, to turn what would otherwise be wasted food into meals for different populations in need. So we mainly serve Ronald McDonald House at Riley, and then we have a few other programs that I'll go into in a second. The organization is licensed by the Marion County Health Department. Our student leaders are Serve Safe certified, so they're trained to work and lead shifts in a commercial kitchen. And we're actually fortunate enough to be able to share the kitchen space in the campus center with the chefs there. Why we do this, like Sarah said, the food insecurity problem is pretty bad, especially in Indianapolis. We're the worst city in the country when it comes to food deserts. And like she had said again, that recent study that IUPUI put out, over 40% of students self-identify as food insecure. Where we get the food we cook from is leftovers from the tower and the campus center. They often overcook their meals just to make sure they have everything for their events. We also get produce from the campus gardens when those are in season. And then we also get a lot of produce and canned goods from Second Helpings. They get over 1 million pounds of food donated to them each year, and they only use about half of that in their operations. So they've set up a redistribution program where organizations like ours, other churches, can go in and pick from the food that they aren't going to use. So it just continues that cycle of trying to keep food waste out of the landfill and in people's bellies instead. Some of the programming we do with the campus kitchen: we do weekly meals to Ronald McDonald House at Riley Hospital. That serves around 50 people twice a week. And then we do once a week a program for the food pantry called Pause Express, where around 25 individually packaged meals are cooked a week for students who have been identified as particularly food insecure. They get that meal, some other produce, and then a meal voucher for campus to provide them meals that they otherwise would struggle for. We also started doing some lunch on us events, is what we called them. So we cooked some really large meals, set up in the campus center atrium, and just served it to anyone who wanted to come by. One, to get more awareness around the issue, try and get some volunteers for us, and more just we wanted to start serving that on-campus population this year because of that report that said how serious the issue was for people right here on campus. We also participate in Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week each year, which is usually a joint presentation with an organization like United Way that focuses on poverty as a whole, not specifically food insecurity. And then just to wrap up some stats from 2014 to 2019, we've had 2,180 student volunteers totaling over 5,500 hours of volunteer work. We've served meals to over 10,000 individuals, and we've recovered over 35,000 pounds of food. So nothing like what Second Helpings is able to do, but it's super neat to see student-led initiatives like this happening on campus. So thanks again to Sarah for letting me talk about what we do.
Thank you for sharing, Dylan.
If anyone has any questions, feel free to shoot them in the chat. I'll be here until the end of the webinar and I can answer them.
So now we'll be talking about food scraps and how to turn them into growing plants. So how does this process work? This method of regrowing plants using only water is similar to a hydroponics gardening system because it's reliant on using the nutrients found in the water instead of the soil to help the plants grow. So in order to do this, besides the food scraps, all you need is water, sunlight, and a container. Some plants are easy to work with and some take a very long time. And they also have different needs when it comes to maintenance, which is essentially how many times you need to change the water. For example, I decided to grow celery, lettuce, and green onions, as you can see pictured on the right. I tried to change the water every other day, but sometimes I would forget, but it didn't affect the growth in any way. Once they reach a certain length or they start to produce roots, that's when you know you can put them in the ground and watch them grow some more. I took timeline pictures of my food scraps, so I will show how they developed in the next slides. This is how my green onions developed over time. They were super aromatic, and it was very exciting to see these grow in particular because of how high they kept on growing. When the lettuce started growing, at first I didn't notice any changes because it looked very similar to the leaves because it was starting from the heart, but it was very interesting to see it develop over time. The celery started off slow, but then all of a sudden after day 5, it just kept on gaining more and more traction and length, and it was fascinating to see the stalks appear very quickly. Here is my video on how to do the process itself. That concludes the end of this webinar. I've put down the email and website for the IUPUI Office of Sustainability if anyone would like to reach out or learn more about what we do. Thank you for taking time to watch this webinar. Are there any questions? Potatoes and onions, as well as most herbs, will usually grow well. So the main steps are to just wash the produce and then you chop it according to the vegetables. So some is just like you just chop off the top and where the roots will grow, and then you place that in water and then try to change it either once a week or every other day. My favorite part about being the urban garden assistant is getting to see how different plants grow and interacting with volunteers. I think tap water or bottled water would work well either way. Are there any more questions? Well, thank you everyone for showing up. I'll be here if there's any more questions. I have not tried to do GMO plants or organic plants, but that would be a very interesting experiment to see how they grow.
I'm just gonna say this answer, Sarah. We aren't able to serve meals right now. Unfortunately, no student workers are allowed on campus, and we aren't really doing anything at this point because of the virus. But as soon as we are allowed to, we're gonna pick back up right where we were.
Are there any more questions? Well, thank you everyone for your time, and I hope everyone has a good day.